Hey guys, welcome back to more Karen stories. In this video, a totally out of control Karen freaks out at a public park because we were having a barbecue. She actually wants me arrested. Let's dive right into the video. The title story starts like this. My daughter just graduated from middle school and I told her that if she got straight A's then she could do anything she wanted as a celebration. She did, and I really expected her to want to go somewhere with her friends like an arcade or a trampoline park. Well, she had another idea in mind, which actually I think was really sweet. She wanted to have a barbecue, and on the invite list was a couple of friends, but mainly she wanted her cousins and grandparents to come. We don't live in a big place, so I knew that in order to do this we were gonna need to go somewhere else. In total, there was gonna be about 20 people, and I had to make sure to find a place that would be good. There's a big public park, but I never saw any grills set up like some other places have, so I called them and asked them about policies regarding barbecues. They did have an area where it was allowed, but we had to bring our own because they had issues in the past with people destroying and trying to steal them. It was a little annoying, but even with buying a cheap portable one, it was still cheaper than I thought the whole thing would be when I first made the deal with her. The day finally came, and it was beautiful out, late June, and we were set up. My daughter was playing with her friends and cousins while the adults all relaxed on the benches and caught up with each other. My husband was the one manning the grill, along with his brother. We had a huge cooler filled with different meat, perfect for grilling. We had hamburgers, hot dogs, kielbasa, chicken and some steaks, and of course, some corn and other veggies for grilling or just having on the side. Some family members brought containers of potato salad and other things, so we were really set for anything. Well, at least anything going on within our group. There seemed to be another family or group having some kind of get-together as well in the same general area. Not a big deal since it's a huge space, and even though they did not have a grill or anything, I can understand just wanting a nice and fairly empty area. I don't know if this area was only for people cooking, but I knew that since we were restricted to this area of the park. That will become a little important later. The first issue happened when the kids came to me, complaining that some of the kids from that other group were throwing things at them. I made sure they were alright and had them move to be further out of the way. This way I could see if the other group's kids were doing anything. Nothing else seemed to happen, and I put it out of my mind as I was also enjoying this little party. My husband was turning out the meat fast, and everybody seemed to have a nice filled plate with whatever they wanted. And we had enough for anybody wanting seconds. And knowing some of my family members, like my father-in-law, I knew he would be coming back for another plate after his first was gone. It was around this time that the other group's kids started to bother my daughter and the other kids again. This time I saw it, and before they could throw more rocks, I got in the way and stopped them. Me, whoa, we don't throw rocks, go back to your group. I don't like to speak harshly to other parents' kids, so I just wanted to try and gently redirect them back to where they go. Before I could even stand back up though, as I had been bending down to speak to them, the Karen arrived. She was dressed in a huge dress that I was amazed she was not sweating in, since it was so warm out. She had a big hat, huge sunglasses and a face that just screamed attitude and entitlement. Karen, what did you just say to my daughters? Me, I was just telling her to go back to their own group since they are throwing rocks at my daughter and her friends. Karen, you have no right to speak to my child or tell her what to do. Your child should be lucky that mine even wants to be near her. I mean, you people are already disgusting and ruining our entire day. And now you want to yell at my kids for just trying to have a little fun and play. Me, it is not just playing, they are throwing rocks and hurting them. Second, I did not yell at her, and finally, if you want to call my family disgusting, then I think you need to look in the mirror if you think it's okay to let your kids act like this. Karen walked away, but it was not even 10 minutes until she showed up with somebody else. If you thought this Karen was the final boss of my story, then you have been tricked. The woman she brought with her was a super Karen. I'm guessing it was her sister or something, but this woman was worse in every single way. She looked more like a Karen and spoke even more like one. She claimed that we were poisoning their kids' minds because we were grilling meat in a public park, that the fumes alone were causing them all distress and heart failure. She went as far as to say that we all deserved to die because we ate meat and decided to shove it in everyone's face. I tried to explain that this was the grilling area of the park and they could have gone anywhere else and been away from it, that we had a right to be here and not once tried to shove it in their face. But I should have known trying to reason with a Karen is just not possible. She got more unhinged and I had both Super Karen and Karen screaming at me about the fact that we were having a barbecue. The wildest claim she had was that eating meat in public was illegal and she was gonna make sure that I got arrested for it. I didn't know what was going on and didn't want to believe any of this was real, that there was maybe a hidden camera and it was all a prank. Or that they were doing this so we would leave and they would not need to share the space with another group. But nope. It was actually real and the threat of police happened, as Super Karen called them, with wild claims. I guess she knew that claiming meat was illegal was not gonna work. Great to get the police over. So instead they claimed that we were starting an illegal fire in the park and got aggressive and yelled at their children. When police and even firefighters arrived about the supposed fire, they just pointed out the grill. They were now back to claiming more crazy things, like the fact that we are not allowed to grill there despite signs showing that this is the designated grilling area. And finally saying that us eating meat is harmful to them and their children. That just the smell and the smoke in the air was causing them to develop clogged arteries and shorten their life. Again then claiming that cooking meat in public was a crime and they wanted us all arrested because of it. The police did get a statement from me, but were mostly too busy trying to calm the Karen duo down. The thought that they had done so and were calmly telling them that nobody was getting arrested and they were free to go anywhere else in the park they wanted. This clearly caused the Super Karen to lose whatever it is she has where a brain should be. She lunged at me, calling me an animal murderer and telling me that I should die. She did get a hit in, but police were fast to grab her and put her in handcuffs. Now they were actually gonna be leaving with an arrest, just not one for cooking and eating meat. Instead it was for assault. You would think logically that seeing her get put in cuffs would maybe cause the rest of that group to calm down. Well, it actually had the opposite effect. More people were getting involved now, either demanding that she be let go or screaming that we also needed to be arrested, claiming we had dead bodies in our cooler. I was more than happy to open it and show him the raw meat we still had not cooked yet. The only thing I felt bad about was that this was meant to be a special day for my daughter. I wanted her to have a good time and instead she had to witness all of this negative stuff that happened. I figured she would have been crying and saying that her party was ruined, but once again, she surprised me. I guess at her age, she knows what a Karen is and was actually the one to show me where people post these kinds of stories. Instead of getting upset, she got excited, wanting me to write the story down and post it here online for everyone. She's been bragging to friends for days about how she saw a real Karen up close and personal. I think it might have been the coolest part of her party to her. She of course was a little shaken up in the moment, but it passed quickly. The police were able to force that entire group out of the park entirely, so now we had the entire space to ourselves. We pulled out a cake that said "Happy Graduation" on it, and the rest of the day went off without any other kind of incidents. I have no idea if Super Karen ended up spending time in jail, but I could imagine her doing something really stupid like trying to fight an officer at some point. The same thing goes for the normal Karen. While the other little girls were wrong, I can understand them a little bit. Their moms were probably telling them for years that eating meat is wrong and people who do it are bad people, leading to them trying to pick on my daughter because she was eating meat. I worry about the generation being raised by Karens and sometimes wonder if it would be better not to let them breed. And the next one is an outrageous story from r/entitled_parents, and it is titled "Taekwondo Karen Mom from Hell." If you've enjoyed the story so far, please don't forget to like the video, because that would help me tremendously since YouTube is giving me a really hard time right now, not gonna lie. So anyway, I'm a Taekwondo instructor with a needy cat that is complaining in the background. I teach the youngest two age groups mainly. My younger daughter is in our Little Tiger program for 6 to 9-year-old kids, and my older daughter is in the Phoenix group of 9 to 14-year-olds. The school is not commercial. All instructors teach on a voluntary basis though. In fact, instructors also pay the same club fee, which is used for insurance and equipment, as all other members. So I pay for myself and my children to teach them myself. As both courses are directly after each other, I cannot bring my little daughter home or pick up the older one in between. The master agreed that both my kids could stay for both courses. The older one helps with the little ones and the younger one does the games with the older group, but then usually plays on her iPad when we do more difficult stuff. The mom of a little boy in the Tigers noticed that my daughter was allowed to stay for the big one's course and asked if her son, 6, could finally move up too, as he has already been there for 6 months and is the same age as my daughter. I tried to explain that she was not in the group and was only there so I could teach, but she did not accept that. She claims when the old master, who is ill and cannot do this class at the moment, did the course, she already noticed that my daughter was his favorite. He knows her from birth, so of course he is closer to her than others, but he loves all the kids. And that she pays me a lot of money and now demands that her son is treated the same way as my kid, who does not even pay. By the way, I have no clue how she comes to this conclusion. She then demanded to speak to my manager. That does not even exist. The master leads the club, but there's no actual boss. But she knows there has to be a manager because she pays us money. I try to explain that she only pays for insurance and equipment, but she does not believe any of it. She actually calls the old master in the hospital to complain about me. He tells her to cancel and sign him up for a commercial club nearby, 50 euros per month instead of 70 euros per year at our club, where she could talk to managers all day. She complains to the board of the umbrella club, not the Taekwondo club, but the sports club that manages many voluntary sports in our city. They are very confused and she still does not give up. At the next lesson, she threatens to get me fired so that a real male trainer can finally take over. I tell her that if I don't do the course, no one will do it. Voluntary work is not really popular, to be honest, and at the end of the lessons, she does not show up to pick her son up. I try to call her, but she does ignore me. After 30 minutes, I call the police telling them what happened. They end up taking him after I tell them his address and they take him home. I don't know the aftermath. Update to the story: so we live in a small town so people know people, and here's what I heard. First of all, I could not understand why she was so keen on putting him in a different age group, as kids are way taller and they just cannot really spare or anything if the gap is too big. We don't separate them by belt ranks, just by age, and they learn the same things, but working with the little ones we do more games and learn and play. Meanwhile, the older ones just learn differently. But there is a difference: we don't take the youngest age group in tournaments. Those tournaments are usually a couple hours away and a full weekend trip. We stay in youth hostels or sleep in the hosting schools. They are just not old enough to sleep in a foreign place without parents. Well, the same problem as with the course though. If I drive to a tournament with the older kids, I have to bring my younger daughter. For the last tournament, 3 of my 10-year-old girls did a music formed performance to the Oompa Loompa song. And because you can have 4 people on your team, they used my younger daughter as an Oompa Loompa, running around between them. It was super cute and they won a gold medal. My younger daughter, as she was officially on the team, got a medal as well, without having done any actual Taekwondo, and that is what triggered the Karen mom. My 6-year-old got a gold medal for playing an Oompa Loompa. For the police taking him home aftermath, she was very surprised when he came home. She told them it was just a misunderstanding, that he was enrolled in the second course as well, and that the master must have forgotten to tell me, so there's not much going on there. But the kid had the best day ever and got to ride in a police car, and they even gave him a teddy bear. He was the hero of preschool. Also, what she had actually done was enroll her older daughter, different father, different last name, for trial lessons. We usually offer 3 lessons to see if it's a fit for both sides. There it clicked. I actually know the daughter who was in kindergarten with my older daughter. She then said since they had the slot for her daughter but her daughter was sick, her son would take the lesson for her. So when she dropped him off today, she told me her daughter is sick and her son will stay for both classes. However, absolutely not. I told her if she did not pick him up, I would call the police again. They would probably not be as nice the second time. So yeah, she actually picked him up and the daughter did not show up. My older daughter told me that her daughter could never have shown up anyway, because she was in volleyball at that time. I just had a long discussion with our master. He has never kicked someone out ever before, but he will cancel both contracts for both kids and give them a full refund. He is such a nice guy. He would have given them a second chance after the first time, but trying it a second time was just too much. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. In a bunch of countries, locals might try to trick tourists out of their money or even to just flat out mug them. That might not seem relevant because this story takes place in a Dominican Republic, DR for short, and I am from there. The thing is that I moved with my family from one part of the DR to another area, and long story short, we are pretty light-skinned while this new area is made up of a majority of darker-skinned people. It can get complicated, but this is not the story for that. Just know that this is a new area, and since people don't know us and we are light-skinned, we can get mistaken for tourists easily. Now, the DR has some of the nicest beaches in the world, and you can be sure that my family loves to take advantage of that. If we could go to the beach daily instead of work and school, we would all be there constantly. Nice clear water to swim in and warm sand to relax on. We went to the closest beach to us and started doing our thing and getting ready to go swimming. That was when a woman who I will call Karen for this story entered. And yes, sadly, Karens do exist here in the DR and are not only in America like some people believe. Also keep in mind, a bunch of other people were on the beach, but none too close to us and Karen. Karen in English, what do you think you're doing? Me in DR Spanish, I think it's pretty obvious. I'm going swimming with my kids and spending the day on the beach, just like everybody else that came here today. The rest of the conversation took place in DR Spanish. Karen, oh, you actually speak the language. Still, this beach is my private property and you don't have the right to be here. Me? So all of these other people on the beach are your personal guests, huh? Karen, that or they paid like they are supposed to. I'm not only the owner of this beach, but I'm a cop and I can have you arrested for trespassing. Unless, of course, you wanted to arrange something now and make the entire thing go away. It was at this point I knew she assumed that I was a tourist despite speaking the language and trying to scam me out of money. Me? You're crazy if you think I'm paying you money to be on the beach. This is a public beach and you're not a cop. I am not giving you any money and I'm not leaving. I came to enjoy the beach with my family and that's what we are gonna do. Karen, I don't know where you're from, but around here people know how to behave. They know that you need to give me money to use the beach, or I can make the rest of your stay here a nightmare. That was when she pulled a handgun out of her bag and I realized that she was not just a Karen, but also insane. She was pointing it at me and kept changing her mind about what she wanted. My guess is this is the first time she had things get this far and was getting flustered about it. First she wanted us to leave the beach and then wanted us to give her money. It shifted to her wanting us to leave the beach but not take any of our belongings or wallets with us. You can be sure I was not letting her rob me despite her having a gun. If it was pointed at my wife or kids, it might have been different, but I've dealt with worse and she didn't seem to have the nerve to actually shoot the gun, or so I thought. So anyway, she took the gun aim off of me and instead pointed it up into the air before firing. It scared my family and it even made Karen herself jump. She still was not giving up on her position because at this point she had gotten herself in too deep. All eyes nearby were now on her after hearing the gun go off. Bad news for her was that not too far there was an actual police officer that heard the shot go off and came running onto the scene thinking an actual shooting was going on. Police, drop your weapon! Karen did not drop her weapon and instead she froze with it in her hands and made the extremely dumb decision to try and double down to the police officer. When he asked again for her to drop her gun and she didn't, he went in and knocked her out for his own and everybody else's safety. He made sure that everybody was okay and I explained to him what she was trying to do and that the shot he heard was into the air. Police don't always stop locals from trying to scam visitors because they just don't have that kind of manpower to handle it all. When a gun is involved though, the entire story changes and they make sure that the person is arrested. Karen got herself together after she was put into handcuffs and trying to argue with the police officer that she was not trying to scam us and instead trying to defend herself because the tourists were racist to her. That was when I finally turned to her and answered her rhetorical question from earlier. When she mentioned not knowing where I was from, etc., I told her exactly where I was from and that I was not a tourist or from another country. We were just light-skinned and knew exactly the kind of scam she was trying to pull on us. She then started to say that we set her up by not telling her that we were from the DR and if we did she would have stopped and so on. I told her flat out that she was an idiot because we had been speaking DR Spanish the entire time and there was zero indication that we were not local. The police took Karen away for questioning and to check to see if the gun was gotten illegally. And by the way, Ripe Stars, even if it was true that OP was a tourist, the thing Karen tried to pull here is obviously still illegal and not okay. Anyway, it was of course illegal and turned out she got it from her boyfriend who had gotten it from some local gang he was in. Meaning that she was already in a ton of trouble and they did not even start charging her for the scams she was trying to pull to rob people just for trying to go to the beach. She was literally endangering children and unloading a shot even if it was just in the air. She ended up behind bars when all was said and done and she is going to be there for a long time. As soon as anything in her arrest linked her to a gang, even indirectly, it was a one-way ticket to jail. My family has since been to that beach many times and nobody has tried to scam us anymore. And here, ripe stars, I guess these entitled Karens don't only exist in Western countries, but they are pretty much international at this point. Before we end the video, we will read one last story from r/petty revenge. It is titled, "Your poop, you are crap." I'm a cleaner by trade and I recently got put to a high-end car dealership because another worker was receiving complaints. So without bragging, I'm one of the better quality employees, so they put me in to restore the client's faith. Anyways, there's this one salesman who, for a lack of a better word, lacks common decency and common toilet etiquette. At the end of the day, as I arrive and this guy leaves, he's the last employee out, he loves to leave skid marks and unflushed floaters for me to deal with, and also leaves spray marks without attempting to clean them himself. Initially I was like, well, it is my job, and just shut up and put on my PPE and went to work. However, like any regular human, I could only put up with this for so long. I made a report to my supervisor at work asking for a little bit more effort to be put in by said employee to make it easier for me to clean the bathrooms. Well, unfortunately, this fell on deaf ears and he made it his mission to make it even messier. Needless to say, he spiced up his work diet and I dealt with the fallout. I then approached his boss, arriving earlier to do so. Again, it fell on deaf ears. I then pulled the guy himself aside and asked him to at least scrub it lightly before leaving. This only made things worse. So I did something that got me in trouble, but also exacted my petty revenge. One afternoon, only last week, he made a conscious effort to take the toilet messier than ever, and I finally snapped. I used my work-issue toilet scrubber and cleaned his mess and then put the scrubber in a Ziploc bag and put that into his work drawer with a note to him. Wrote a note and left it on his boss's desk explaining my actions. After a disciplinary meeting with my bosses and a few days off for personal reasons, I returned to the dealership last week. I found out that the salesman had been fired. I was issued an apology and a $100 Visa gift card for compensation. And yeah, I feel a little bit bad. This dude could have taken 30 seconds after his business to keep his job, but the petty part of me is dancing a conga line right now. And yeah guys, to be honest, I would say that guy deserved to get fired. OP should not feel bad. That other dude was clearly super disrespectful. Either way, thank you for watching. I hope I see you again tomorrow.